Welcome everyone. This is the Data Standard podcast experience. My name is Matthew Rawl. I'm a host, interviewer, and I'm very glad to welcome today Patrick Callinan. Patrick is the head of insights and data science at CarTraker. I think our audience is going to be really intrigued today because this is a company that I bet none of you have heard of, and yet I think they're doing some pretty significant things. So first of all, Patrick, just welcome. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you guys very much for having me. I'm delighted to do this one.
So maybe before we kind of dip into CarTraker, it'd be great if you could just kind of give a little bit about your background and kind of how you came to where you are right now today.
Cool. So my name's Patrick Callinan. You're probably getting an Irish accent, so I'm in Ireland right now. I spent about 15 years in the US, mostly East Coast, not West Coast. I'm a mix of things. So I'm an academic, economics, not proper engineering. I've been, a consultant, McKinsey. I've been an advertising guy, Ogilvy. I've been a lot of things. The thread that runs through my career for the past 30 years is data. So, way back before we even had things like Spark, we still needed to do data, and maybe not on the scale of today. I guess the kind of transition to where I am today is really around bigger and bigger data sets, and the move from doing analysis, making a couple of PowerPoints and waiting 6 months for somebody to do something with it, to actually getting stuff into production. So like the thing that I'm really excited about what we're doing at CarTraker right now, and hopefully why I'm here, is to talk about we've actually got machine learning models in Python running in production, and we can deploy in real time. So we push new models onto the main production plant. No messing around, no transcoding. That is new. It's definitely new for me, and I haven't seen too many people. Certainly not companies. We're a small, medium enterprise. Like we're 500 people, total across the world. A company of our size getting to full CI/CD deployment on data science. It's kind of cool.
Yep. So let's step back for a second. I mean, you've got this super interesting background. You've been with a lot of big name companies, and now you're a CarTraker. I don't think anyone's ever heard of CarTraker in our audience. So started in 2004. Like, what is CarTraker? What does it do? Talk about the business model a little bit.
So yeah, I mean, CarTraker is and again, we're hiring at the moment, so I'm going to pitch pretty hard. CarTraker is probably the coolest B2B company that you've never heard of. We're a white label car rental API. That's probably the easiest way of saying it. So if you're an airline or you're an online travel agency and you're offering car rental as part of your proposition, the engine that's supplying that, about 4 or 5 times out of 10 is the CarTraker engine. But because it's white labeled, it's not branded. So you're not really, we're not famous anywhere outside of travel, and probably only in the ancillary side of the big travel companies. So, a lot of very large airlines have us, a lot of very large online travel agencies. I think it's okay to say Uber. We've announced that partnership. I think it's okay to say Hopper. We've announced that partnership. So quite a lot of really big companies, they come to us for it because we've got the aggregated supply. So we like pretty much everybody who is anybody in car rental goes through our platform and is subscribed to it on the push side. And the tech is good. And I think increasingly, and this is the piece that I do, the data science is good. So the optimization to make sure that the correct car is put in front of your customer. We've got a very large sort algorithm, what other people would call a recommender engine, but a very large recommender engine project going. Got a lot of insurance pricing because we'll sell you the insurance as well as the rental car. We've got pricing on the cars, and increasingly we've got the CSAT, the customer stats, so like full cycle. Or NPS if that's your drug of choice. So yeah, it's essentially a service business into other businesses. So it's not particularly well known as a consumer brand, but yeah, interesting place to be.
And talk about just the monetization model a little bit, because you're essentially the recommendation engine sitting behind like you mentioned Uber or another major airline, whatever it may be. So how does data science play a role in how you actually monetize, and how is it helping you to or is it helping you to drive margin, drive revenue? Talk a little bit about that, because I think that's super fascinating.
Absolutely. Well, like if you're if you're a web business, conversion is the thing. So you've got a bunch of traffic, you've got people who are rocking up to your site. Your ability to convert that traffic is, how you live or die, and it's millimeters. It's not kind of feet and miles. Like a little percentage increase in how well you're converting, can make a big deal or a big difference across the year. So yeah, data science, we've now built it in, so it's essentially part of the engine, which I'm kind of proud of. And again, I can be proud of it because it wasn't me who wrote that code. The first thing is sort. So you come up to, your favorite airline site. You've just booked an airline trip and you're going to Hawaii. You then get an offer. Hey, do you want a car when you land?
Mm-hmm.
The way that offer is given to you and the car that's put in front of you at that point in time, you will convert 2, 3, 4 times better if all of the proposition is right. So data science is only one part of this, but in general, our sort is increasing unit margin by about 5%. So the profit, the kind of, we'll call it the EBITDA that drops to the bottom line on a particular visitor increases by 5%. And you're going 5%, not so big deal. It's a big deal.
On EBITDA, that's huge, right?
Yeah, exactly, because it's coming straight through, like on the profitability. It's the same cost to bring them there. It's the same cost to actually provide the car for the most part. But by giving them the right brand, giving them the right fuel policy, giving them the right insurance, then you're improving. You're basically you're servicing your customer. You're giving them what they want. So good for them, good for us.
So talk a little about the magic sauce behind that. I mean, just take the example. I buy the trip to Hawaii. The recommender engine, that whole kind of algorithm behind there, somehow has data about me or someone that looks like me, age, income. How does that, talk a little about kind of how that works? Like, how do you zero in to make sure that I get the right, whatever it is that I may want? It's the Jeep Cherokee versus the minivan or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I mean, this is what's exciting about it. It's not a lot of variables or features in the model at query time. So when you get into that kind of route through the website and land on our particular section of it, we actually don't have a lot of information for you at that point in time. In most cases, we know which partner, which airline passed you to us. Mm-hmm. We know where you're coming from, where you're going to. We know the duration that you want. We know the car that you clicked on. Earlier on, if you're deep linking in from, say, a meta site, so one of these paperclips, we've got that. And that's pretty much it. So, like, you have to infer a lot. So, the old word for this was lookalike modeling. So we're managing to get about 5% out of what is essentially lookalike modeling. And let's call it historical hit rate. So essentially, we have put at this time of day for this type of journey with this number of passengers with this kind of request, putting this car at the top has been more successful than putting that car at the top. So it's a combination of history, but it's actually very few variables. So a lot. I think. One of the AI guys was saying that they had 1 billion features in their most recent model, and I was going, oh, cool. That would be fun. We have the opposite problem. We have very little information. Now that's improving all the time, because if you can get to 5% with limited information just by, again, lookalike modeling, then if your partner gives you additional information on top of that, what is the loyalty tier of this customer? Because that's a predictor of whether they want to go full size or they want to go compact.
Yep.
What is the total mileage flown? All of the variables that you can pass to us, we can incorporate them in the models, essentially backtest the whole thing, and then we A/B test like crazy. So we'll figure out a way of using the extra features to get more information out of it. I guess the other thing that excites me about it, because we're not done with sort, like this 5% is just the start of this.
Yep.
we also we're implementing Snowplow at the moment, which is essentially tagging, front end tagging, and we're going to work a little harder with the first party cookies, because third party cookies are gone. That will help us quite a lot, because the speed at which you interact on that journey through the website is a good proxy for what your actual intentions are as you're purchasing this car. So if you're in a real hurry to do it, then it's quite possible you're trying to get home for Thanksgiving or something like that. You'll take whatever. You want it to be cheap, you want it to be full service, you want it to be major brand. You're not going to spend a lot of time browsing up and down. Yeah. So getting somebody something that's like, oh yeah, that will work, click. The interaction with us in the journey will help us a lot. How people are scrolling. So I think there's another deep area of data to mine, which still we still don't know who you are. We don't know that it's Matt, but we probably can infer quite a lot about you at query time. And that's the big thing in what we're doing at the moment. We have an SLA with we're kind of like an engineering team that's not an engineering team, because we're data scientists. Some of us are better programmers than others. I am probably the worst person on the team. None of my code has ever been or ever will be in production. But we have an SLA with the IT guys, with the guys who run the website, that we got to return in 40 milliseconds or less. So they pass us the information from the front end that comes through. We'll take that as a JSON, we'll put it through the model. We call it ACDC. So that's basically our Flask framework running on top of the Java client. And we'll return, there's your sort order in 40 milliseconds or less. So a lot of what we're trying to do, we're optimizing for simplicity and speed as much as we're optimizing for accuracy. So good now is better than great in an hour.
Right. I think that makes a lot of sense. So I mean, what are some of the biggest challenges as you kind of look forward, working with these large vendors? You talk about that, very competitive SLA, but what are some other challenges as a data science team that you're wrestling with?
I mean, they're probably the same for all of your listeners. The first one is earning the right to play. So as I said, I've been around the block and probably around the second time at this stage of my career. One of the big things has always been, data science is not seen as a primary function or, an operations function. It's seen as a support function to marketing maybe, or, if you're lucky, maybe you're working for finance. But it's always been something that's one click away from rather than in the front line. So getting we need the story is always like, success has many parents. I think we need to be as thankful to the guys in P&T and product and technology at CarTraker as our own team, because they took a chance on us. So they allowed us, well, they built the ACDC, so they actually allowed us to kind of get into the actual primary work stream. But that's been a challenge in a lot of the other places I've been. It's really hard to earn that trust, and sometimes it never comes at all. And everyone just gets bored with data science before you've got to that final part of getting stuff into production and getting it into a repeatable process. So getting trust, that's probably the first one. The flip side, the business side, patience is not a virtue generally. So you have to figure out how you're going to match up between, the low-hanging fruit, get something out there, in 3 months. So that the first 100 days, that's not a bad way to think. You've got to have some plan to deliver as much value as you can quickly, and that earns you the right to move on to the next piece. Otherwise, IT guys won't let you in, and the business guys, will get bored with you. So moving that along, we got lucky here. So that's one. And then talent retention, it's probably the same all over the world. So I used to be a McKinsey guy. They've written a couple of reports on, the talent drought and the shortage and where it's going. That's real. Like when you find people who can do what these data scientists can do, like you hang on to them for dear life. And there's Ireland, I guess you guys are going, hey, we're in San Diego. This is a cool part of the world. You'd be pleasantly surprised that if you kind of flew into Dublin or even flew to West Coast. I'm actually West Coast based in Ireland. Pretty much all of the names that the Googles, the Facebooks, the Apples, Twitter, they're all in Dublin, and they're all competing for it. And all the insurance companies have, data science groups here. A couple of the banks have data science groups here. So competing for talent and retaining it when there are other people who have, deeper pockets than you, that's a challenge. So, we've got a couple of things in that.
Sure.
I think we're more fun. We've got 15% for research, so people, get to do some cool stuff as well. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. We've got development plans for people. It helps a lot that it's a lot easier to get your model into production. So, we've got insurance claims risk models. I'm sure if I was working for an insurance company, it'd take me a year of compliance department to get this thing, running. Got fraud models running. It's sometimes it's quicker in a small company. Yep. So, and that's kind of how we compete, but it's been a challenge.
So, I want to follow on this thread because I know that you're actively looking for folks on the data science side, probably just always, but right now is the time. And we have this whole kind of remote work discussion that's kind of taking place. Is CarTraker a place that everyone is working out of, Ireland, or are you remote and distributed? Like, how do you think about that? And are you looking for, if we definitely have listeners on the phone that, that are coming from other, lots of places around the world. I mean, are you hiring around the world, or are you hiring in Ireland?
We're not currently hiring outside of Ireland for the data science team, even though we've all been remote for the past year and a half. So, okay. I personally don't have any problem with somebody, moving to Cancun or Cabo Verde or someplace like that and working from there as long as the internet's okay. It's purely a logistics thing and a tax thing more than a preference thing. So,
yep.
Yeah, right now Ireland works best for us because it's just easier to do the accounting. It's not like, we've actually got this word now, hybrid working. So even when, like, Ireland is pretty much vaccinated, it'll be kind of done by the end of the summer. So we can all go back to the office, but we've taken the decision at CarTraker, my bosses have taken the decision, and I'm very happy with it, that we will let people figure it out for themselves, whether that's 5 days, 4 days, 3 days, 2 days, 1 day, whatever works. We've proven over the past year and a half that we can deliver the product 100% remote. So I think we'd all like to get together again, but yeah.
A little bit of both. So, there's so much to cover here. One of the rumors I heard about you was that you are one of Snowflake's biggest customers in Europe. And, one of the things, a lot of the listeners to this podcast are dealing with data at scale. And so can you talk a little bit about that, and, what are some of the challenges, and, how have you addressed some of those?
Yeah, well, the most important reason to buy Snowflake is they have the best brownies ever. So, like, their merch is great. So hopefully if I've mentioned them 3 times, Andrew will send me some brownies. Jokes aside, we definitely love Snowflake. Now, I'm not going to, say there isn't another way of doing this, because there's many ways to do this, but it's worked out real well for us. The reason we like them is, one, it's a very flexible way of thinking. So they've kind of split the compute and the storage. So it's a nice model for figuring out, you can put it over there. It's kind of cheap the storage is actually reasonably cheap.
Yep.
The compute, it's not hideously expensive, but when you talk about the cost of staying on-prem versus kind of push it out to the cloud, it doesn't work out too bad, even when you scale up, because that's always the scary thing about when you push stuff to cloud. It's cool for the start, but then, like, it starts racking up, and suddenly, like, you're onto a different box, and the economics have totally changed. We're finding that our OpEx is scaling more or less linear. And that's helpful. Like, our finance guys, our CFO is quite happy with us on that. The other part of it is it's just the way that they've built a lot of it. it's getting fashionable now to call lake houses. So, it's a combination of a data lake and a warehouse. We didn't deliberately set out to build a lake house. And actually, Stephen Carey, who's the guy who runs our Snowflake plant in CarTraker, cool guy, he didn't set out to do that, but because he was the guy who already built our Spark instance. So, he gets the whole big data lake piece.
Yeah.
And I think we've probably internally architected so that Snowflake is doing the job of a Spark instance. Okay, like it's not Spark, but it's Spark-like enough that you can kind of dump a whole bunch of stuff, schema on read, all of those things. And it behaves and it's performant like a traditional warehouse. So we've kind of taken what it does and squeezed it. I guess the other thing is we've been kind of lucky. We discovered Airflow early. So we're orchestrating a lot of stuff through the warehouse. I don't think we would cron job this kind of stuff. It's like Airflow plus Snowflake plus we're putting Tableau on the front end. Got a pretty sweet way of getting management reporting done with very little hassle for us.
Yep. Very interesting. I guess, there's a lot of things I want to ask you about, but I want to go back to something you said at the beginning, because I think it's really interesting, which is you are, you've kind of, I don't want to say mastered, but you are getting, machine learning models into production very quickly. And that's something that is very kind of timely for a lot of people that are on this, that are listening to this podcast. Can you talk a little bit about just some, what are some of the success factors? Like, what did it take to make that happen? You've mentioned some of them already, and some of it is industry specific. Obviously, there's regulatory pressures and audits and those kind of things. But outside of the regulatory environment, what are some of the things that made it at CarTraker feasible and realistic to do this that maybe some of our listeners could think about inside their own data science teams?
Yeah. How long do we have? Let me see if I can do the 3-bullet version, the consultant version. Like number one, the teaming up. So we in data science, or insights in data science, or insights data science, data intelligence, because like it's all part of the same team. We're not doing this by ourselves. So, we are working with the business, the guys in trading and the guys in supply to figure out what, where is the money? Like where is the piece that we need to fix with the model? And then we've very strong relationships with, true engineering. So like the people who are building the overall web product and the engines that run, inside of our partners, either like, we've got SDKs and so on. So we work very closely with those guys. And I think that's probably job one. You need to know what you need to ship. And you need to make friends with the people who are going to get you there, because it's data science does not run an engineering plant really. So that's number one, team up. And like number two, you kind of pick the technology for the job. And I said we were lucky. We've tried other stuff, so we've thrown away a couple of things as well that we spent quite a lot of time on. So I guess, if you're a manager or if you're kind of the investor guy that's watching all of this and who's responsible for, going to the board and saying, hey, yeah, actually that didn't work, then just, it's some of them not going to work. Like this is science we're doing after all. It's not, if it were predictable, then, I wouldn't have a job. So it's kind of, I think that there is that element of risk taking, and be prepared that sometimes you'll invest and it won't quite work out, and get back up and go again. So it's persist. The corollary of that, I can guarantee right now that like Flask on top of a well-formed Java plant, that works, and you can get latencies down to 40 milliseconds with that configuration. Mm-hmm. And you can actually put Python models through a Jenkins pipeline or GitHub Actions pipeline, and do proper CI/CD, which makes everyone a hell of a lot more comfortable. You can do that, and that's working for us, and it's not particularly painful. So like the overhead of doing things right, doing it like a full DevOps. People are talking a lot about MLOps now. Doing proper MLOps, doing proper DevOps, it's not as painful as it sounds. It's a new thing to learn. I know it conceptually. I don't, you're not going to hire me as a DevOps engineer anytime soon. But, I think a lot of our people on our team and a lot of the people that we partner with, they probably look like ML ops experts at this point. It's doable if you have the tech, and you just kind of look around and figure out who else has it done already, and see if you can work there. Final piece is, low-hanging fruit. You have to show up in the first 100 days with something. So like, I think building castles in the air for 3 years' time, we're doing that. So like we get license to kind of take a long view and do kind of proper R&D, because we're making money for the company today,
right.
Making money for the partners today. So it's kind of a long, short game.
I was going to say, there's not too many places where you can get a 5% uplift on EBITDA outside of like, a big time M&A deal or something. I mean, it's hard to find that type of impact. So, I mean, that definitely will make the business sit up and take a second look at you, I think.
It does. We're private equity owned. Like they threw the ruler over that before they bought us. So it's validated.
Right. Wow. Well, listen, Patrick Callinan, Head of Insights and Data Science at CarTraker. Patrick, if folks want to reach out to chat with you, is the best way to reach you on LinkedIn, or how should they do that?
LinkedIn is probably the easiest thing. Like, I won't promise that I'll come back straight away. I think we all live on Zoom or Slack these days. But if you ping me on LinkedIn, I promise I'll get to you over the weekend, if that works. And when meetups come, well, then maybe you tell your manager, we got to go to this meetup in Dublin, because there's some experts over there, not me, like the team, and I'll get you a free trip to Ireland. And be sure to use CarTraker to rent your car on the way.
Sounds awesome. Thank you again. It was really, really appreciated, and we learned a lot. So I appreciate your time.
Brilliant. Thank you, Matt.